Welcome to Breaking Beliefs. My name is Amy Vetter, and this is where we explore the thoughts that shape our lives and our work. Each episode uncovers how challenging our limiting beliefs creates space for authentic growth and sustainable success. Let's break some beliefs together. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interviewed Chris Gallo. He's the partner and director of outsourced accounting and payroll. Chris began his career working on Capitol Hill for the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, where he learned to work between federal and state and local government. From there, he built and grew a couple of independent consulting firms before joining Bergen KDV, where he built a state and local tax practice from the ground up. Once that practice was off the ground, he used his experience with technology as well as his experience building practices to redefine the way CAS was done at the firm. Now, as a part of creative planning, Chris has successfully built a $35 million CAS practice with plans of doubling over the next 10 years. I hope you enjoy this interview with Chris. There's lots of leadership lessons in this interview, and also when you're really thinking about scaling and growing, you're going to see some actionable items that Chris provided during this interview. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, and I'm here with my friend Chris Gallo. He is a partner at Creative Planning. And Chris, do you want to get started with just a little intro or background on yourself?
Sure, will do. As you had said, I'm a partner at Creative Planning, formerly known as Bergen KDV. So we were I think it was about 50 firm at the time prior to the acquisition of Creative Planning. I lead our outsourced business accounting and payroll team. And the reason that we name it that is because Peter Maluk, owner of Creative Planning, has gone through a number of iterations on naming conventions. And he says, the more confusing a name, the more confused people get. So he likes to name it exactly what it is. So we go, wealth management, outsourced business accounting, it's named what it is. Bergen KDV sold to Creative Planning, and we became Creative Planning Business Services. So that's kind of how we think. Well, that's not kind of how, that's exactly how we think of ourselves and call ourselves. The reason it's outsourced business accounting and payroll is because we have taken effectively all functions of a business financial accounting unit or team, packaged it, and provided it as an outsourced option for the market to buy. So as we know, most payroll bureaus are standalone. And while that exists here, we rolled it into our financial accounting team and thus created the package from payroll the whole way through CFO level services. And obviously we'll talk more about, that as we get into it. So it's a little bit about me and what I do here at Creative Planning.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it seems so simple, but just to name something simple,
right?
You would think that, we have to take all this time, but you want the market to understand what you do.
You do. Yeah, I'll touch on this a little bit. When I originally kind of took over CAS, we renamed it to FAST, and that was Financial Accounting Advisory Services Team. And it still lives fondly in my heart, but we always had to explain what FAST was and thought, that's great. People ask about what's FAST. And it's directly contrary to Peter's beliefs. So, we're like, all right, hey, whatever, we'll call it outsourced business accounting and payroll, and people don't have to ask. But it's
well, and that's where I started. It wasn't a thing. I mean, let's see, when did I start my practice originally? I think it was in 2001, and that's what I called it, outsourced accounting and bookkeeping services.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go back and just get a little background on yourself before we get to where you are today. So where did you grow up? What did your parents do for their careers? And did you have siblings? Just give us a little background on yourself.
Sure, will do. So it's a bit of a story. I was born in Kentucky, but I lived there for like 6 months. What's that?
What part of Kentucky?
Maysville,
Oh,
Covington area. It
yeah.
was in the late 70s when I was born, it was pretty deep south. My folks are originally from Pennsylvania, Western PA. Mom's from Pittsburgh, dad is from Erie, and mom was a teacher, dad was in manufacturing. So, yeah, during that time, it was Carnation Foods, and during that time, vertical integration was a big deal. Businesses, so Carnation Foods, if you think canned milk and those types of things, they owned the dairy farms, they owned the cows, they owned the milking process, and they also were then buying, canneries. So they started the cannery and they owned all of these things. And then, at some point in time in the 70s and 80s, they started to divest of the canning operations and the can plants. And it's the age old story of private equity. Two guys started buying canning operations and then grew to be a publicly traded company. Now it's called Silgan Containers, like Sylvester and Gargano, something like that. They combine their names, right? And my dad went to college, worked his way up, became a plant manager. And so then he was moving around to different plants. That's what you did in the day. Nobody was mobile. Nobody worked remotely.
Yeah.
You were on site working, and he would stand up these, either take on old facilities and, kind of revamp them, bring them online, newer ways of doing things, or when we originally then moved from Western Pennsylvania, so Kentucky to Western Pennsylvania to Central Iowa, which is where I'm sitting now. There's a couple stops in between there in my personal life too, but he moved to start the world's most state-of-the-art canning operation.
Oh, really?
They actually just built the cans. They made cans, and he would say they make trash. Which, if you think about it, pretty much anything. Yeah, anything these days, if it's got a pop top to it, so Friskies cat food, Carnation milk, the tuna cans, anything with a pop top to it, for the most part, outside of like your beverage cans, is made by Silgan Containers.
The one where you peel it up.
That's right, the peel top. Yeah. I spent some time working in those manufacturing facilities, and kind of just doing a lot of different stuff there and learning, like, I might not want to do that when I grow up. Yeah. So I went to school in Central Iowa High School, went to Northern Iowa, University of Northern Iowa, which at the time was the number one accounting college in the nation year over year over year over year.
Really?
I'm not sure where they stand this year. Yeah. Cranking out
I always
CPAs,
wonder how they get rated that.
I don't know. You know what I think it is? It's probably just like anything else, right? It's you pay enough to get rated number one.
Exactly.
And you put out a whole bunch of CPAs and they're like, okay, you're number one, whoever's ranking them. I got actually a political business degree. I decided I didn't want to be a CPA. So I went into finance, got an economics minor, got a business finance degree, but did not decide to be a CPA. Really was I liked politics. I was on this, elected to the student council, if you will, in college, all that stuff. And that actually took me to Washington, D.C. I worked for chairman of the Judiciary Committee at the time. His name was Jim Sensenbrenner. He retired not long ago as I think like the oldest and longest standing member of Congress, maybe of like all time.
Wow.
But at that time, being part of chairman of the Judiciary Committee, I was part of a very high ranking government person. So it was a lot.
And this is as an internship or when you graduated?
Yeah, I got an internship and then I actually graduated and worked for him for 4 or 5 years and then ended up quitting there, and I ran the Fairfax County Republican Committee for the George Bush campaign, which I like to say, like, that's the last time a Republican won Fairfax County. So, hey, man, I got to hold some kind of record that nobody keeps. Looking back on things, it's like, all right, well, that was cool. And
did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it at the time. Washington, D.C. was a different place. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. But I say, I learned, as a young 20-something, young 20s, you set off to change the world. I quickly realized the world was well past changing. In government, I've never seen hot dogs being made, but I bet it's disgusting. And government being made is even worse. It's as bad as everybody says. It's actually even worse.
What was the thing that got you to realize that you weren't going to be able to make things change?
Well, I like to be a fiscal hawk myself. So I am a conservative. I'm a libertarian is what I am. Leave me alone. I like fiscal responsibility. I mean, you kind of would be running a business and a budget. Right. There is no fiscal responsibility, and everything is a deal. Everything is a backdoor deal in Washington. Everybody's paid for. Everybody's got a dollar connected to them, and nothing gets done without some type of a purchase happening. And I'm not suggesting it's all a bribe. I'm suggesting it's blocking. I need this done, so I'll vote for your bill, which is $1 billion of crap that we don't need. And I was like, you know what? I'm out of this deal here. So I went, I got an opportunity to run the campaign for, George Bush at the time, who I didn't know anybody better than to admire. I'll leave it at that. But lost faith in that when George Bush so eloquently said, we must suspend free market principles to save the free market. That's a quote by that genius. And so I was like, nope, that's not how it works. That was in 2008. It was just like, yeah, I'm out of here. I'm not gonna do this anymore. So yeah, moved. I needed some space. I like to be outdoors, like to fish, like to hunt, like to do those things. My free time was single. So I'm like, I'm going to move to Iowa. Just moved back to Iowa. I had an opportunity to be a CFO for a small construction company. That was about 2007, 2008, which at the time, hindsight being what it is, and thus George Bush pushing all of the policies to accept low to no interest loans to unqualified people, thus crashing the housing market. It was a bad time to be a CFO for a construction company,
Yeah.
So, it didn't work out real well, and had some time to, on my own. But over the course of the time that I was CFO, learned to build houses. So I bought an acreage, built my own house, quite literally built my own house.
Wow.
Because I had time to figure a few things out. And over the course of that time, I met a former partner at RSM McGladrey, and he had started a state and local tax practice. Being in the federal government, I learned a lot about how the federal government works, the difference in the state and local governments, the distinction between tax codes, all that good stuff. It was like, hey, I know a little bit about what you're talking about. He was starting up a company in eastern Iowa. We had got to talk, and he said, what do you think about, taking on the Western Front, as we called it? I'm like, all right, that sounds great. I got nothing else to do this time. So that was when I really kind of professionally took on state and local tax, where I'd always just kind of dabbled in it and understood it when, whatever issue may come to the federal government that wasn't federal, it was state and local, I would pick up some of those issues. Started working with that person for a while, spent several years doing that, at least 5 in that company. And we parted ways, and I took, the business knowledge and, building sense that I had anyway, combined it with the state and local, and started or joined another very small firm. It was a risk management firm, and I started their state and local tax practice from a risk management perspective. And we would do.
You still get to utilize your political background doing state and local tax?
Good question. And absolutely, because understanding how government works plays a big part in understanding and being able to interpret code, law, and making it read how you want it to read, and then being able to speak political gibberish to government officials, watching my P's and Q's eloquently was a very important part of things. And I've actually, I've written Iowa code.
Hmm.
It's like I changed 2 words
Yeah.
in a sentence, but it was very, very, very impactful to lots of businesses in Iowa. And I still lobby, for fiscal responsible code. I spend a fair amount of time on Capitol Hill. I'm involved in Capitol Hill in Iowa. I'm involved in a lot of, associations and, like National Federation of Independent Business, that represent small businesses. And so I still like to do quite a bit of lobbying for beneficial, fiscal responsible legislation that benefits businesses.
Yeah, I think it's so important because I actually, years ago when I worked at Zero, in Zero Australia, they figured that Australia have brought tech companies together with the government and tried to figure out how do we, through automation, just calculate these taxes rather
Oh
than
yeah.
having these business owners get upside down, like, and just take
Yep.
it because they really have all the information. And so for Zero US, I took what they did and we had a lobbyist. We went to the White House. We met with different senators and congressmen, and it was amazing. They were all like, this is awesome.
Mhm.
What bill would I put that in? And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that's not what I thought. Like,
Yep.
it would
Yep.
how it would go, it would have to fit in something else, and the
Oh,
system
sure.
right now, when you're an accountant, you know how hard it is on small businesses to keep up with all that.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things. So sales tax, there is no national sales tax. So the feds can't do anything about sales tax. And that's why I was, back in the day, if you will, pre 2018, there was a lot of complexity, right? Pre Wayfair.
Mhm.
Australia had the ability to just do it because they don't have the 10th Amendment, which gives power back to the states to do what the states want to do. That's
Right.
Australia, and Australia sends U.S. businesses letters all the time. Now, you owe us this much money. We know why and how.
Mhm.
The feds can't do that because there is no state or there is no sales tax. States have the ability to govern themselves. States are never going to lessen sales tax for the most part. They're always looking for more revenue. Pre Wayfair at the time. So skip forward, I joined Bergen KDV because I was pretty well exclusively consulting for them. So I started my
Mhm.
own little firm inside a risk management business, joined up with Bergen KDB. They, CPAs think federal tax, right? And income. So federal income and all of that complexity is the primary objective for most tax CPAs. State income kind of is next. Sales tax, nah, they don't really
Right.
want to deal with that. And there's, I think, over 14,000 taxing jurisdictions and 500,000 lines of tax code just from just sales tax. So it took a specialist, joined Bergen KDV pre Wayfair, again, 2018. And that was primarily working for singular businesses to go in and make sure that they were compliant in an individual state, if they were even there, and all the physical nexus laws and stuff were still applying. But all of these states were starting to create these ridiculous laws to establish physical nexus. And
Mhm.
my favorite one is this cookies law, I believe, that Massachusetts created, that said, if you buy anything in Massachusetts over the internet, you have created a cookies connection and thus have a physical presence in Massachusetts for that business. And you got to pay a sales tax, even if you're from Iowa. And you're like, you're kidding. But it was being upheld all over the place. So that was happening.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, just through complexity, there was a reason for Bergen to have a specialist at the time. And we were doing audit defense and sales tax, and just taking care of really staying local from a sales tax perspective.
Mhm. And so what was the evolution of that to
Yep.
what you do today? Because
Sure.
you're like now part of all outsourced accounting and
Right.
payroll. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I started there in 2016 after two specific state and local tax companies to stand up their state and local tax practice, which they didn't really have. Just kind of like the last person to deal with, whatever audit for the client it was. 16, 17, 18. So 17, we're watching Wayfair, and being, to your political question, I still like to watch what's going on in politics for
Mhm.
some really odd reason. It's
Yeah.
kind of a hobby. And I'm watching Wayfair versus
Yeah.
the state of South Dakota go to
And
the
maybe you
Supreme.
can explain Wayfair to anyone that's listening that doesn't.
Oh man, we'll put them right to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what Wayfair, the business, right? Wayfair, they were really revolutionizing selling across the US over the internet, right? It doesn't seem like that long ago. It really wasn't. But I mean, ordering stuff and having it shipped to you was not really that common in 2016 and 17.
Right.
Makes you wonder where we're headed. By little airplanes and drones are going to be just
Yeah.
dropping stuff on the door all day long instead of the Amazon guy. But really, even this is pre-Amazon. Their Amazon is just coming on. So Wayfair, the business, gets audited. They get a letter from the state of South Dakota. The state of South Dakota says, you've got presence in our state because you're selling into the state, you're delivering into our state. I don't know the particulars, but that was
Right.
the genesis of what was going on. And Wayfair said, no, we don't. And so they went to court over that. Wayfair, the company, lost, and they took it to an appeals court and they lost. And so this is happening over, the course of a year. It happens all the time still, even really. But this was the very first one. And I'm thinking to myself, if I know governments, they're going to get their money. They're going to figure out a way to do this. So in 2017, I bought $50,000 effectively of software, sales tax software, Vertex. Went to CPA.com, said, actually, I Googled, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to need a calculator if we're going to
Yeah.
provide this type of consulting to our clients. I'm like, yeah, I wonder what's out there. Vertex comes up. Never heard of them, right? Avalara is all over the place. Vertex I had never heard of. I went to Vertex. I went to both of them at the time. Avalara didn't have an accountant's portal. I'm like, well, if I'm going to provide this, I'm not just sending them over to you. So that was off the table.
Right.
Vertex at the time said, yeah, we'd love to work with you. You got to go to CPA.com. We have an agreement to work with them. It's like, okay. So I go to CPA.com, run into Matt West. And those listening, I guarantee you, they know that Matt West. And he currently works for us now. But anyway,
Yeah.
this is how this started. He's like, yeah, I got you, man. Here's what we got to do. And so we get the Vertex platform. I buy, what I need in January 2018. Okay. So we start in 17 thinking about this is going to happen. Better get it figured out for 2000 and whenever it hits. We get the technology implemented and stood up, but we really don't have any clients that are interested in it because they're like, that's not going to happen. Nobody's just going to take you on until they're forced
Right.
to do something, right? Why would you start collecting across the United States if you don't have to?
Right.
So we got the thanks, but no thanks a lot of times. And really nobody was believing me that it was going to happen. Till it did on June 21st, 2018, which I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, and in Reagan International Airport, beautiful airport, when the Supreme Court gave the ruling as I'm like taking off on an airplane, like the top of my mountain is, I'm
Yeah.
peaking while I'm on an airplane and nobody can get a hold of me. It was great. So I get off I land wherever I'm at and it's just, my phone's just blown up. What I said was going to happen happened. And that was kind of like one of the few that was like, all right, I'm all in on this. And so luckily we were ready to collect and remit, calculate, collect, and remit for any business in the world in the United States, and we were one of the few firms that was able to do that. So I could bring technology to any of the companies, and to this day, most firms really still don't want to do it. We do a lot of work for those firms, but we were in. So I kind of, like said, I pushed my chips in, said, this is going to happen. So answering your question, how did I get here? Firm liked that. Revenue came in, we went from $0 to $1 million in no time, and that's what firms like. I wasn't a partner at the time. Like, who's this guy? So I kind of made a splash, and we were growing like crazy. And at the same
What do
time,
you think? How do you think it affected the clients? Like, with you
well,
kind of
clients were absolutely in love with it. I mean, it is still a booming business. That business in and of itself right now will be over $4 million, probably by the end of the year. Just state and local tax. Okay. It's about 10% of the business that I run right now.
It's so confusing.
Yeah. I mean, businesses don't want anything to do with that. And they're very happy to go ahead and outsource that to us. Firms do too. So we work with a lot of firms that are like, no, thank you. Will you handle it? So yeah, absolutely. We're not, and we don't take clients because that could happen one time, and then that would be a very, very bad situation.
Right.
For me, my name, reputation, creative planning. Like, we're not in the business of taking people's clients that we work for. And so the firms that trust us in that, of course, we have it in writing too. But they lean on us to provide their clients with the same level of service that we're providing ours. Same time. So 18, think about 19. CAS is the new hot ticket, right? You were going through, but it's now CPA.com's like, hey, look at this. And Dixie McCurley's teaching, CAS, right? 1.0. And I took her class, by the way. Went taught it, but I was teaching a state and local tax class at the same time. And so, we kind of got these two teachers of classes, and I'm sitting in on hers, learning a lot about just mechanics in the future of what's going on with client accounting. Christy Revering, she's my number one right-hand person, was gathering all of kind of the client accounting folks in the firm that were generally sitting outside that partner's office, right, doing write-up work, and having it getting written off. The firm was like, wait a minute, why don't we charge for this? And what if we actually listened to somebody and did it monthly? And then here's an idea. We're going to provide our clients with monthly financials instead of year-end write-up work, right? It's kind of all of this is coming together, and it seems like eons ago, but it really wasn't.
No.
And so this fun story. I'm talking to my boss, same boss as Christy Revering had. We're two completely different people running small businesses in Bergen, KDB. We didn't really even know each other. My boss says, reach out to Christy. She runs a team of accountants. They file a lot of sales tax. I'm sure they would love to work with you. So I did. She's like, no. Just like, absolutely not. Just not interested at all in sales tax or, working with us because we hate sales tax. We're not going to file more returns.
Right.
Our boss says, all right, you guys get together and put together a business plan that identifies how you're going to bring your teams together and, be a part of, be a singular part of the accounting function. So we did. We got together, we worked it all out, presented him with a very well laid out plan as to why that was not going to work. So he did exactly what he told him what he didn't say to do. Like, here's why this won't work. He just laughed and said, you don't understand what I'm saying. You guys are coming together. You're going to get together. One of you can lead this. I don't care which one it is. I have faith in both of you. I have confidence that we can both do it. If you guys can't figure it out, we'll go through the interview process like the rest of the firm does, to hire leaders and solutions is what we'd still kind of call them back in the day was the solution.
So before we get there, why were you both so adamant it won't work at the time?
Well, I mean, to this day, so I didn't have any staff. It was just me trying to run this.
Right.
And I had one person, Megan Reno, who leads all of the compliance side of things now. Her and I are trying to figure out how to make any of this work real time now. And I mean, we're at like 10, 20, 30, 40 clients. There's a line at the door, to get in here. And we're still just trying to figure this out. So is the rest of the world. And I'm like, boss, I got to have people. And he's like, no, I don't think you do. Well, okay. So he says, go to the accountants. They'll help you out. Randomly pick any accountant, pick 100 accountants right now. And they will all tell you no, they don't want to file sales tax returns.
For sure.
They don't want anything to do with it. I'd take that bet. And so that's why we were like, no, this is not what you think it is, boss. No way that I'm going to be able to use accounting staff to figure out sales tax technology, code, all of the mapping that comes along with that. Oh, and by the way, use the technology to file returns. And I maintain we were right, because we still don't. We're on the same team, but we do not use accountants to file sales tax returns. And we file thousands and thousands of them a month, like tens of thousands a month. So he said, all right, you guys figure it out. One of you can lead this. 2 good businesses, but you're coming together. So we get off the call. I call her back. I'm like, oh, great. Well, she's been around here for a lot longer than I had, has an established team. I'm thinking to myself, like, well, naturally, she's going to want to continue. It was kind of leading this team. It was already a solution. Like, she's going to want to do this. I'm like, damn, Called her up and I was like, well, what do you think? She said, I don't want to lead this thing. I said, good, I do.
Oh, wow.
So I got the job, that was kind of how that went. And the reality
Why
is,
didn't she want to lead it?
Well, so she didn't and doesn't want to be kind of the forward thinking, directional, politicking face of the solution to the partners, to the CPAs, to fight the battles. Remember, back in this time, the plan was to be quite literally taking staff from partners to move work into a dedicated solution that they did not support or believe would be a good idea.
Yeah.
So
she's like, no, thank you. That's really important, because I think a lot of people go for the title but don't understand the job.
Sure.
I think to really understand like what you enjoy doing and take the ego out of it, but I don't want to be in those battles. That's not my forte. And really having a clear understanding of what that meant to be the leader of, and every skill is important. Like, you need the person that can run the thing and you need the person that can have the vision, but usually they're not the same person,
Well, at the time, okay, so you're exactly right. I believe in every single thing that you said. At the time, we employed EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. We don't do that anymore because they're kind of large, but we're too big of a company to employ it now. And by EOS standards, we're too big of a company at Creative Planning.
And just explain EOS if someone hasn't heard of
it. Explain it. Well, it's
like high level.
Yeah, it's effectively an operating template for a business to follow. That's how you manage your business. There's lots of different templates out there. There's books all over on how to run your business. But this came with a facilitator. EOS is the name. It's kind of it forces you to, have meetings with agendas that set Vision Traction Organizer is one of those things. And, it names all the things and you adhere to that structure implicitly, or you're not running your business by EOS standards. And it really worked well for a smaller firm to get us to where we are. Where I was a visionary by EOS terms. A visionary must have an integrator. Okay? So they are two of the exact same positions, if you will.
Right.
One is focusing on implementing the things that go on the integrator. The other person is focusing on big picture, where are we going? How are we going to do it?
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun for me, probably not Christy so much, to sort out, those roles.
Yeah.
And what I found was So we started with like 12 people, whoever we could recruit to even join us in this crazy expedition, and about $2 million of revenue. That's about what we had. Think about $1 million in staying local and about $1 million in client accounting ish. And I had a bunch of big visions, and Christy would always be like, no, not now. And she was right. Don't get me wrong. What I learned was to employ these visions, which were technology, new ways of doing things. You know, the market's telling us this. We're going to the CPA.com. We're going to the other, conventions, and even people like you got to do these things. And I would come back and say, we got to do these things. Christy's like, no, you're crazy. Okay. After a couple of years of that, I'm like, why don't you come to me to these conventions, and you can hear other people talking about, whatever it may be. She did. When she got to see the vision as well, then I've never had it so easy.
Right.
She's like, oh, that makes sense. And other people are way better at communicating than you are. So I learned something there, and we really started to take off. We went from 2 million to 4 million to 8 million to 16. We're going to do $40 million, probably $41 million this year on our fiscal year. And we started in 2019.
Wow.
So, I mean, the growth has been exponential because I like to say I just listen to the market and do what the market tells me it wants to do. I don't build anything and try and sell it. Why bother? I'll just solve problems.
Right.
And by doing so, I give you kind of the 4 pillars that we employ. 1, I don't build anything. I listen to the market. What do you need? Number 2, the second pillar of the square, right, of the foundation is, what technology am I going to use to solve that problem? If it requires more people to dig a hole or anything, I'm not doing it, right? What technology are we going to use? And you can pick any of them out there. Our tech stack is, QuickBooks, Sage Intacct, NetSuite, and pick every single connector that connects to them. That's generally kind of the base of the platform. Think Giraffe for FP&A, right? Think Vertex and Avalara and, for state and local tax, and all the other different technologies that we deploy. So that's how we solve the problem that the market tells us. The third pillar is, how are we going to package and market this thing? So I go to people who are good at doing that, selling it and packaging it. That's not me. I could talk about it all day, but I don't know how to get a lead to save my life. And I don't want to. So we talk to marketing, that bring in Matt West, right? He's like, all right, he's a sales genius. He's got a team of people who knows how to sell these things. And it's not sales per se. It's being able to speak it eloquently and in a intelligent fashion about the solution that we're bringing to you that you will pay us for.
Yeah, that solves their problem.
Culminates in a sale, right? And then the fourth pillar of that is the production that we put together. So the production team, right? And Christy leads that team. She is in charge of really making everything happen. And when you put it all together, you've got a foundation for growth.
Yeah. So when you say listen to the market, when, someone's not naturally a visionary person or can identify what are the things the market, like what is the thing the market is saying? Because you hear a lot of stuff.
Yep.
What is it that you're seeking in your head or when you're listening?
Yeah, the first and easiest thing is you got to listen to your clients and understand why they're leaving. Okay, because they will. They'll probably tell you pretty quickly. We were hearing 16, 17, 18. I'm leaving for a firm that specializes in what you do or what I do. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we specialize in what you do, but we weren't even saying that. And we weren't talking to them monthly. Okay. We weren't. They're telling us they wanted us to do their books, and then they're telling us that they wanted some insight, not for me to just crank out. I wasn't doing this at the time, neither was Christy, but in the general CPA world, they're just kind of, if they were doing anything monthly, they weren't. It was usually always a follow-up, a cleanup, maybe quarterly, right? Remember, because there's always a tax deadline, then they do the work and you're like, here's your books for the past 3 to 6 to 8 to 12 months. That wasn't working, and there was no insight there. So that's listening to the market. listening to people like you, listening to people like CPA.com that are able to be like, hey, this is what's coming out here, right? From maybe governing bodies, and then just kind of getting good at finding your own channels, to investigate, and then, just what kind of technology is out there to be able to solve those problems. So it's a culmination of all things. What I don't listen to is, and this is going to sound terrible, but the people trying to sell me technology, because they're just trying to sell me something.
Right.
I've got lots of partners. Those are not the people who are selling me technology. But what I'm not listening to is like, you need this. And you're like, no, I'll let you know what I need, type thing.
Right. Yeah, because you're identifying the pain point and then searching for the solution.
Right.
Yeah. With all the evolution of AI, I mean, this summer's been an explosion at conferences with AI companies.
Yeah. We're the whole way in, but yeah. Sure.
So what does that mean?
Well, it means a lot of things. There's a number of ways to look at AI. So internally, from a creative planning, bubble, we are injecting AI into everything that we do to make it easier for us to find data, right? To find out what we're doing for who, where, right? For clients. Obviously, there's a lot of AI that is employed already in all of the technology that, we have internally. We're building a lot of our own, and then externally, I mean, if you're using technology that doesn't have AI in it, I don't even know what that would be, but that would be ridiculous. Just about everything's got some form of AI in it. And then I've got a team of technologists and programmers and developers that are building their own AI to solve our own internal problems. And we are building agentic AI and actually starting with that here. We're already starting with it.
Yeah.
And so we're going through and process mapping our own stuff. How do I do more work with the same number of people and actually have them do less work? I mean, I've heard people that don't know what they would do when they retire. I'm not one of those. And most of the people go to work, let's be realistic, because they like the paycheck. They like their job, right? But if they were independently wealthy, they probably wouldn't do it. I'm a realist.
I don't know. Some people trying to teach work-life balance to a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're just addicted to work.
There's some of those. Yeah, they do exist. But I like to say, let's get more work done without doing more work. I mean,
exactly.
It's my favorite thing in the world. So let me make it easy on you. And when people understand, I mean, if we grow at anywhere between 10 and 20% a year, okay? And so let's just say 15% growth on a $40 million budget. That takes more what? People aren't even around to do it. So nobody on this team, from Peter's vision the whole way down through the company, is worried about losing their job because of AI. We are training the heck out of AI and making it make us more efficient. The amount of hours spent collating data to put together a report is absurd in today's day and age. So we're building AI, we're building agents. They're not outward facing, they're inward facing. So when you teach that agent how you think, what you're looking for, the tasks that you're doing, you can absolutely make your job and life easier.
Yeah. I just find it interesting, like watching the next year or so of job roles, because I think there's going to be supervisors of AI rather than a person.
There's no doubt about it. We're going to watch the machines work. That's perfectly fine with me. The machines are nowhere close, and I maintain this, no matter who tells you what, nowhere close to being able to tell you anything to do or an intelligent advisory fashion. Maybe someday. But I really do think that that's a good that may never get there, because there's so many different options that it does take experience to know. And then just the other things that you cannot program into, as thought around what to do as a business based on what I learned 20 years ago in a different business in this particular situation that will never be injected into AI because it can't. That's what we're going to do
Yeah.
as people.
One last question on it for your opinion. So, with it doing a lot of the roles of entry level people that help them learn how to do the advisory work, what are you thinking now is going to be a way for people to learn what's
Yeah,
we have in our
major
heads
problem.
because of doing it?
Big problem, because how are you going to, if you don't have the history to understand and think about like, oh, all of these situations over the course of my life allows me to tell you this is a good idea,
You're right.
and you don't have any more of those,
Yeah.
I have no idea what we're going to do about that. And I think that I am not alone, because I've heard other people speak on the tax return the tax return is over.
Right.
It's done. Like, it is
Mhm.
done
Yeah.
by AI. The advisory is not.
Right.
But those, and I forget who said it, but they use AI exclusively for 2 years, okay, to do the tax returns, and they would review them and then talk about them. The group, bigger firm, let's go with one of the big four, okay? I don't know who it is, maybe top 10. They found that the 2-year class, as they, kind of up or out in the old days, but you got a 2-year class, you come in, you spend 2 years, was so far behind the 2-year class ahead of them that they stopped using AI to do their tax returns,
Wow.
because you're not going to have anybody to know anything. And
Right.
the technology cannot get smarter. I know I'm going to get crucified by people because, Gallo says it's not going to do this. But there is no way for it to get smarter if we're going to get dumber. It's only going to be smarter because we're dumber. And so there has to be, as humans,
We won't
right?
know what we don't know.
We won't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And, where it's really helpful is being able to just gather all of these things and then show us different, you know, avenues, but you still have to be able to make an educated decision on which way to go on that. And so there's a lot to be learned there. I don't know. We're bringing in young kids as fast as we possibly can. And that's where we've got to get that data transfer of knowledge into their heads. And it's right along. I mean, it is
Yeah,
bringing up
it is.
job experience. They never taught you anything in college anyway. They certainly don't teach you experience in college now. I mean, they teach you a lot of things, but I remember, we've had multiple kids graduate. They don't even know how to log into QuickBooks, let alone,
No.
balance a balance sheet. So
Well,
got
and
to
that
teach
was
them
a
how to do that.
realization even when technology was not even near what it is when I started, but I was in audit. And when I started my outsourced accounting practice, and I was like, well, I'm going to take the first client so I know how to supervise someone doing this because I had never done the bookkeeping for a business.
Mhm.
And I've been the auditor looking over the bookkeeping. And I realized like how many bank recs I audited without ever having done a bank rec and understood like where do those errors come from? And
Sure.
like
Yeah, it's
how do you
exactly the
fix
same
it?
thing. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The good news here is the kids, as I say, right? And I'm old and gray now, but throughout the course of history are always smarter than we were at that age.
Oh yeah.
That's a
They
fact.
understand the technology differently.
It's different. And so they understand what the technology can do. And they also understand what they don't know and what the technology is able to do for them. So this just came up yesterday, and I think it's a good example of what we're facing. We've got a young staff accountant who is amazing, really, really good person, tied to, our controllers and CFOs doing the work. And they said, all right, you want me to show you how this happened? She said, not yet, not now. And I wanted to go figure it out on her own. So these people I think are being taught not to just implicitly trust it blindly, right? But
Right.
go figure out the mechanics of that. And then you have to have people, and technology is going to allow us to do this. AI is going to allow us to have enough time to now train people on what the heck it just told you happened.
Right.
That has to happen.
Has to happen. You have to make space for it.
It
Yeah.
has to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so many great lessons here. Just want to end with just some rapid fire questions. So, family and friends, money, spiritual, or health?
Do I pick one?
One. Just pick a category.
that you're going to ask me more questions, or
Yep.
that's the most important to me?
Yeah, that I'm gonna. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, let's go with money. I mean, who doesn't love money?
Good. So things or actions I don't have that I want to have with money.
I'm pretty simple. I have the things that I want, but what am I looking forward to? I would like to buy property, more property, if you will. I'd like to have different places to go that were mine. I like to travel, like to have one in the South, like to have one in the North, Northwest. So that would be right off the top of my head. That's, a couple things that I'd love to purchase someday.
Yeah. So things or actions I do have that I want to keep.
Things or actions that I do have that I want to keep. Well, material things, my boat, love my boat, love my fishing boat. Actions, really staying in touch with, I'm going to stick with the professional side of things here, but the people, there's about 189 people that I employ, if you will. And right now I'm going through and re-meeting and talking with each one of them, what's going well, what's not going well, what we need to work on. And I get a lot of feedback that, believe it or not, I find it hard to believe, but people kind of like my style. It's very open. It's very honest. It's very blunt. It's very direct. So I choose to keep that. Not everybody loves what comes out of my mouth, that's for sure. But you can trust that it's what I know, believe, or feel. Yeah, because I'm not, beating around the bush at all. So I'll definitely keep employing that as long as I can.
All right. So things or actions I don't have that I don't want to have with money.
Oh, with money that I don't have, that I don't want to have. I don't have debt and I don't want to have it outside of the house, that type of thing. But I was one of the fortunate ones to get one of those very, very low interest rates. So I'm kind of making money on that. But easy one, don't want it. I don't think the United States should have it. I'm not going to get it. So say debt.
Okay. And the last one, things or actions that I do have that I don't want as far as money.
Oh boy, it's easy that I do have that I don't want. How is it not so easy to just scroll and click and buy stuff?
Yeah.
Right? I would like to see the Amazon man less. I learned to say, I'll text my wife and be like, hey, honey, we hit the trifecta. We got Amazon, FedEx, and UPS all in the same day. Probably crap that I don't need, Yeah. So,
no, I like that. I think that's for anyone, right? It's
right.
Like, especially when you get that Facebook ad that shows up and you're like, ooh, I meant to buy that.
Yeah. Right. I can't wait to see what my phone suggests that I buy, here in about 5 minutes, probably.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being on today. Just before we close, is there anything that we didn't cover or something you want to emphasize from today's conversation that you want to close with?
Well, one thing so I like to meet everybody that we hire. Okay. And a lot of them are the kids. I do a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, I don't do enough of, but mentoring is a big thing. Like, we have got to continue to bring up the next generation, or we're going to lose them probably, because that experience. So that's a big deal. And along the lines of, fiscal responsibility and money, I don't think that we teach our kids or anybody enough about saving.
Yeah.
The compounding value of a saved dollar invested. And it's, they say, I believe it's like $9 trillion of wealth is going to transfer over the next 20 years, which couldn't be better for those of us entering the market and exiting the market, or in the middle of it. We're in a really good place, but really understanding the value of money, how to earn it, how to save it, what that means long-term. Passion of mine. And anytime I'm talking to interns, like, oh, can you give them any wisdom? I'm like, yeah, save your money right now.
Yes.
You save $1,000 now. By the time you're my age, you're going to appreciate that advice. I don't think that we hammer on that quite enough.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today and sharing your story. I'm sure people are going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah, you bet. That was fun. Thanks for having me.
And now for my mindful moments of this interview that I had with Chris. So, first off, I really appreciated Chris really telling his story so genuinely and coming on, just opening up about his journey and his successes and being really concrete about it as well. I think a lot of times when people talk about successes or even things that were hard times, we kind of gloss over the real dollars and the hardships and so forth. But what I definitely took out of Chris's story was even when he got down or things weren't exactly as he pictured, he stayed in a forward momentum state where he kept learning and growing so that he could be looking at what's next and really looking for where the opportunities are. And you really see that in the work that he does now. And I think that really began with his training, being in the political arena and really understanding how things get done, even if it's not the perfect way and the way that we always want things to get done. But the fact that he, really wanted to make an impact. And I think it's important when we have that inner purpose to make an impact. In order for us to feel fulfilled, it's important we identify those little wins along the way. That sometimes we gloss over that and we focus on maybe the negative of it wasn't exactly the way that we thought it was going to be and look upon it like that. But usually I find at least that even when I'm looking at things in my career or life that didn't go exactly as planned or as I'd hoped, because of those experiences, they've really taught me the lessons that I needed for the next thing. I really, really think that we learn from even the things that didn't go as well more than the things that go well, because it shapes us. And we also know where to not turn and go in a different direction so that we can make sure that we are successful. And so even though he kind of lost faith in the political process, that passion around government really came through in his state and local government work. And he was able to create practices where there was none or people didn't see the opportunity that he saw. I think that's another thing about being a visionary or someone that is entrepreneurial as their core, is that you're always looking for what's next, what could be the next hit. And there's always naysayers. There's people that don't have the same vision. And so they are going to push back at it because it actually might create more work or more investment, and there's no guarantees. And sometimes you have to do things based on gut, like that inner knowing that something is either off or it's right. And when it's right, you know it in your body and you move forward. Now, it doesn't mean that your execution plan is always going to be perfect, but if you actually take the chance, you're going to learn something. It's not ever just a failure, but what's important is that you learn fast and so that you don't lose too much along the way and you're able to make sure that you're still achieving the outcomes that you want. So I was at a workshop this week and someone said, instead of fail forward, it's learn forward. And I liked that so much better because I think so many times we use these things as failures or we put them in the category of failures, and they actually are learning processes that help us to move forward into the next objective or the next initiative. And so really taking that positive spin out of a very negative word of learning from the experience and how do we move forward. And he has been the demonstration of that by not only creating his own practice when no one else could see what he was seeing himself, but then taking it into a larger accounting firm and being able to grow it from nothing to $1 million to now almost $40 million this year, including other service lines, of course. But that experience he had in growing that has helped him grow the total practice, and it's just a multiplier. So important to just go back and celebrate the wins, make sure that you are learning forward, and to not give up. There's times where you may need to lick your wounds and give yourself space to do that, but do it within a time period that you set and then get ready for what's next. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast and being a follower of it. It is so helpful when this is shared to others that you think would help them in their lives. Maybe it's at work or at home as well. That's how we continue to grow. We actually have celebrated 5 years of doing this podcast, which I can't believe. So I really appreciate the continued growth of the podcast and you listening and what you take out of it as well. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.